Welcome to Patchwork for our Ruler of the Month class. And today we're going to add the HQ Skinny to our arsenal. I've got some things I'm going to show you about this guy here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, just wanted to follow up with a couple of questions that were brought up before. In January, all the way back in January, would it be okay to use your BSR foot against your ruler? And so I have looked and looked and consulted primarily with, remember this book, Amanda Murphy? She's like she's the Bernina spokesperson for rulers. Nowhere can I find where using a BSR foot would be endorsed. And the reason is, again, is because of this profile. The profile of the ruler foot, number 72 for Bernina, or if you have a different make model, your maker will have something that will have this 1/4 inch profile. And that's both safety and it's also a good way to get good repetition because our rulers are 1/4 inch high. This is going to move right alongside that ruler side. So this is really, really important. So I would not use the BSR. I had to get mine out and look at it because I've never used mine.
Have you seen somebody's come up with a new way of using the BSR under an acrylic table? So it's not the foot that they have. They would still have their ruler foot up here, but they have it, if you Google it, they've worked out a way to run their BSR under the table.
I am not.
So there is a thing out there that you'll probably see in social media that somebody has just come out with it in the last few months.
Really?
So it's a thing, and we may even get it in. I need to check it out and see if it actually works the way they claim. But yeah, so it's kind of the same idea that Handy Quilter has, where the eye is built in to the table, and
kind of
it's
like the capri.
Exactly. So it's sensing the movement of the fabric, but it's not the foot that you would still have your ruler foot on.
There's also an aftermarket ruler foot made for the BSR.
Oh, okay, interesting.
A customer told me about.
So we've got a couple different ways to go there.
Okay, good to know.
It's on there and it's thicker so that Bernina will come out with one in probably next few years. But
yeah. Yeah. You're conservative.
But in the meantime.
So Mary, she was saying that there's also an aftermarket foot to use with the BSR on the Bernina to make it a ruler foot.
The other thing I would wonder is the foot you're talking about, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably acrylic.
It is.
Okay, so that's got a whole nother conversation around it. I have tried 2 ruler feet that are acrylic, and you've got to really be careful because they will crack. The other thing was in January we talked about. I had just heard about this Bon Ash for basting, and you can use it for a lot of other things too, both practical like repairing holes or mending tears. But Cynthia got some and I tried it and it works. And so if you're working on, I haven't used it on anything very large, but for instance, what we're going to be working on today, like 20-inch square or one's 18-inch, maybe 18 by 20, something like that. It works great. So I am sold on it. And the advantage is there are no pins. So your ruler is always going to be flat on your fabric. And so you don't have to worry about that tipping or bumping into a pin. So I'm really sold on this. And it's cool. Like you just sprinkle it. Yeah, you sprinkle it and then iron it. So you just sprinkle it on lightly. You don't need a whole lot. And they have instructions. I mean, all the different things, applications, all the ways you can use it. And then you put your press cloth over it. That protects your iron in case you've got extra on the outlier area. And then press it down. So first I put my batting down, then the backing, and then sprinkle it on the batting. I only do half at a time. And then press that down and then do the other side and then flip it over and do the top. And I can tell you, if for those that were around in January, you might remember we kind of played around with this guy a little bit. And so I used it on this, and it's been since January, and it's still good. Well, now I've got to stitch down, but it's good. So it holds. It does nothing to your needle. No gumminess, no nothing. It's washable. So if you're using it on garments, that's okay too. So they have a really good pamphlet on all the different ways that it can be of use to you. And it is $15.99. And this doesn't look like much. It's only 1 ounce, but that'll last you a little while, good while. So based on how much I've been using. So I have found it really to be a nice break from pinning if you have bad hands. And also then your ruler is always smooth. The other thing I wanted to mention, in case I didn't last time, I couldn't remember, is Quilter's preview paper. And it is $15.99, but you get a bunch, and you use it and use it, use it and use it and use it and reuse it. And so it's really worth the money. It's 20 inches wide. It allows you to play. And let's say I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this border, so I'm going to just draw it out. And then, okay, that's okay. And I could just fill in those triangles, but I think I'd rather have diamonds. So I'm going to come back and do diamonds. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to finish this border. And if I make a mistake like I just did, you take a piece of scrap batting, and probably you don't have much of that lying around, but and create your diamonds. And then you can play around with, maybe you want to do more than that with them. Maybe you want to do a squished, in the center. It's just a good way to play, get ideas. Just keep drawing. It's like brainstorming. You don't judge it at first. You just draw, take a picture of it, wipe it off, and draw something else, and just keep drawing. And that's how you come up with great designs, or fun designs, and great designs. I mean, some of them I probably would never use, but I'm not going to not draw it out just because I think I'll never do that. Who knows? Sometime down the road, I might use that one. Today, we're going to use this one. But Quilter's preview paper. And then when you're done, it just all disappears. And you can use it again. One trick, and you have to decide how to do this, what makes sense to you. The roll comes with this dark edge on each side. But once you cut it, you don't have that dark edge. So I always cut a little bit more than what I need. And then I put painter's tape on the right side up. I'm very tactile more than visual. So I can immediately pick this up and know which side is the right side.
Because it definitely is the right or wrong side.
Once you start marking on it, there's a right or wrong side. I don't want to put, even though I'm white, I would not trust putting that down on my textile, because you don't know, you might have missed some ink, and then there you are. So some people instead will take like a Sharpie, something permanent, and put an R in the top right corner. And so whenever you put it down, you're looking to see if you can read that R in the right way. I don't have that much patience. So I just feel, and I know this side is slick, and that's my downside, and this side is my upside. But you definitely do not want to go beyond those borders. So Quilter's preview paper, another tool to use, and well worth the investment. It also allows you, you can take multiple pictures, keep drawing. Just try whatever. Just, like when we were kids and could just sit and draw. And nobody said, no. Just keep drawing. And then find what's pleasing. Take pictures. And then, of course, I just erased it. When you're ready to stitch, you can put it down and it's your roadmap. If you can't quite remember what you were doing, and sometimes this is a little better to me than a photograph even. So I can just lay it back down and say, oh yeah, that's right. I was going to do a channel and put some coins in there. So it's a great way to find the patterns. And I mention that because so often people ask me, how do you decide what you're going to stitch? How do you decide on the pattern? And that's how.
Okay.
I don't have a pro stitcher. I just draw. I get ideas. I look. I keep my eyes open. Look around you. Look at your fabric. Today, this fabric has these wonderful circles here, and then it has circles there. And so I'm playing off of that a little bit. So just look for ideas everywhere. And that way it's not complicated. The other thing I would throw out is, backside of pieces. If you can work on your practice pieces, a fat quarter, an old sheet, whatever, muslin, and then use a contrasting thread so that you can see your progress and also see where it's not easy and work toward, that, making adjustments to that. So it is kind of stark at first, but it's a good way to see. The other thing is, when you feel like you want to try something other than just practice all the time, but you don't want to put it on your table runner yet, that's going to be on your table for everyone to see, find an orphan block. That's what these are. These are orphan blocks. I put a border on scraps just to give me enough room to play. There are a lot of them out there. People make a practice block, don't keep them. I find them at the thrift shops, wherever. There's always one or two, and or they didn't like the way they came together, so they just toss them. So look for orphan blocks. This one's the same way. And I didn't do anything to this one except give it a good press because they pressed it really wrong. Stitch in the ditch that we did last month or month before. You cannot stitch in the ditch if you don't have a ditch. And you get a ditch by pressing your seams to one side or the other. If you press your seams open, you can't do it. You're stitching right over your stitches that you've constructed with, and that's going to weaken the textile. So you got to have a ditch. And so all I did here was create the ditch because they had pressed all the seams open. So then I went back and did that to create the stitch. So orphan blocks, they're everywhere. I didn't get them all.
One of the hints that you gave us that I had not heard before, and it was a real eye-opener to me, was to use a finer thread when stitching in the ditch.
Yes.
And I never considered that. So
yeah,
that was a bonus.
Yes. So it hides. And also, so if you have to backtrack on this one, when I stitched in the ditch, I didn't go into these little triangles. I just thought, it's a little triangle and I know I'm going to put something there, so I'm not going to worry about that. But what happens when you don't, it poofs. And then if you try to do something like an arc on either side, like a cathedral window or something, it really just sticks right up, and it looks different than the rest of your quilting. So I went back and did that when I was doing the rest of these straight lines, but that meant I had to backtrack. And I was using 50 weight thread. So if you have to backtrack, that's again where 60 weight is usually what I do for stitch in the ditch, a 60 weight thread, usually bottom line, unless it's a silk textile, which I will use silk, that's 100 weight. You can also use monofilament. And there's some better ones these days that are polyester, not nylons, get brittle and yellow and all of that stuff. So the ones today are much better. Superior has a really nice one. And then Superior also has micro quilter, which is another 100 weight. It's a polyester. And it will disappear. But it depends on what I'm working on. But by and large, for most things, I use 60 weight, and that really will disappear in the shadow. You can almost see that shadow of the ditch and your thread just is going to lay right in there. Which brings up another point. So on the ruler foot that you have, and if I'm talking too much, you guys let me know. There's a V right in the middle there of your ruler foot. And when I'm stitching, that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the needle. You're looking at where this is. And if this V is right there on that ditch, get something better. If this V is right there, and there's a hash mark right there, and if it's right there, I don't have to worry about where my needle is because my needle's going to be in the right place. So I'm watching this and keeping that hash mark. That's true of all quilting, really, not only rulers, but even free motion. Because if you're driving a car, you got to look further than just the front of your car. You got to look a little further. And the same idea is here to know where you're going. So that little V is a great little tool. So that's what I'm looking at to keep those lines in the ditch. And this was 50 weight, and it disappeared pretty well, I think, using that method. But I will tell you that I have to remind myself to do that sometimes. You get going, and the next thing you know, you're kind of watching the needle. And what happens when I watch the needle? I jump the ditch. So I have to remind myself of that sometimes as well. And when I'm going backwards or like on domestic, so if I'm going this way, away from me, pulling the fabric toward me, there's a little mark. I'm looking at the back side of the foot. I'm not looking at the needle. There's only about 1/4 of an inch space, but that's enough. If you're looking at the back side of this opening in your foot, you'll be good. Don't look at the needle. Yeah, it's hard not to do. And I do it as well. I think that's all the follow-up I had.